back, everybody, to another episode of Gas is on the Right. No, he's got a chance to win the race.
I think that might have been like one of the cleanest hits I've ever seen in a NASCAR fight.
Side Rick. Down the back. Oh! Into the wall hard goes Ryan Blaney.
And he finally came to a stop. And it was just dead silent.
I said this last week, and I'm going to keep reiterating it. Live with the decisions you make, drive by the decisions you make. Don't change up your style, but also just don't be dumb. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Gas is on the Right podcast with Daniel, Emily, and Alan. So here we are. Happy Wednesday night, everybody. Let's get into it. So Bristol said earlier in the season, we talked about this in the first episode this year, that they're bringing back good old short track racing as it should be on concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And man, did they not disappoint. Talk about classic short track racing. Man.
That's what I couldn't help but feel robbed, since they had dirt on that track the last 3 years, that we could have been having. That's the kind of short track race we could have had the last 3 years,
Right.
If obviously if the temperature's the same and stuff, and if they had that same tire each time, but
yeah, I mean, it's insane to think that there's been all these talks about what needs to change and what needs to happen, and they didn't do anything. I mean, they didn't even run the new aero package this weekend. So it was the 2023 aero package, and it's the same tire. So, but let's
Speaking of the tires, let's see. We had tire wear on an unprecedented scale. We were only going about 40 to 50 lap runs. And I tried to get a caution count for exactly how many, and I can't. I can't even estimate 8, where we were at.
Including the stages. I think it was about 8. But, I mean, there was the crazy part is they brought the exact same tires last year on the exact same track and had a completely different result. The only variable of this race versus the last one is because there's the chance of rain. They said the PJ1's too slick for if they do have to put rain tires on, so they put the resin instead because it's a little bit more grippy.
Mm-hmm.
So track temp and the resin versus the PJ1 were really the only two factors that changed the track. That's the only two different variables, and it's crazy how much the track temp and just putting that resin down changed the entire race from this race, what that race looked like in the fall, to what it looked like Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did end up finding a caution count. There were 9 cautions and then 54 lead changes.
Yeah, most lead changes on, I think, in NASCAR short track history, with the next one being Bristol as well, if I'm correct, but it was 40.
Yeah, 40.
So
I believe I said on the broadcast, which I mean, there's no I can't pass in this car excuse on Sunday,
Yeah. Well, let's look at that a little bit. We'll watch a quick video of Briscoe showing what new tires can do versus old tires. I mean, in this short clip, I think he passes 7 cars.
I wish you had the Mario Kart star theme when you get the box with the.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it's like.
Oh yeah, I mean, tires made all the difference, and it's insane just how much they affected it here. If you watching the video, you can see where the resin is that they're talking about there on the low groove, but then the tires wouldn't lay down rubber in the middle groove, and the high groove was full of marbles, which is just the tire fall off, the tire shredding itself. So
really,
I mean,
right.
In the second groove is where people have spun out in the second.
But yeah,
that's burnt rubber, not the good kind.
Yeah, the only thing that really I think everybody thought it was too much fall off which I can agree. A 50 lap run at Bristol is a quick run.
Mhm.
So, comparatively to, I think they're wanting like 65 to 80 lap runs. This is
Yeah.
what everybody
Well, I
was
mean,
hoping for,
some of
but
the
we don't
tires,
want a 100 lap run.
yeah, some of the tires Goodyear's brought there, they said you could have ran the left side 3,000 miles. There was no wear on it at all. So,
Yeah, but I mean, here's a
Right.
comparison of left side and right sides in this picture. So you got your rights at the top, your lefts at the bottom, and I mean, I'd say that left side looks pretty worn.
yeah,
So that right
yeah,
side's
it's crazy how
corded,
much
but
debris is on
Wow.
tires.
yeah, I
And
mean,
that's not even the worst ones.
yeah, I mean those are mild comparatively.
Yeah,
I don't have the ones,
that's
but
probably,
Denny's last stop, he actually had one that was basically corded and done. Like when they pulled it off the
mhm.
car, it was in pieces, and he still managed to come back and win the race.
Yeah.
He beat your favorite driver.
Yeah, we didn't get any new promo from Denny this weekend. Kind of a shame, you know. Kind of a letdown.
He
Kind of
did say he was gonna stop saying that.
he's got to get a new one though.
I know
All
you
we
could
got
see
was
you could see his wheels spinning.
oh, he was
Yes.
trying.
People off.
Yeah, he was trying. So, but yeah, I mean, I think tires is the biggest conversation right now. Obviously,
Mhm.
everybody's been talking like they want tires to wear, and you got it. And I've seen
Mhm.
such a different feel from both sides about it. Like I've talked to guys at work that are like, "That's too much. That was too much." And then my opinion is like, "That was freaking amazing." Like the
Yeah,
difference that
well,
it made, the way that they had to conserve, the way that kind of your cream of being able to not overuse your equipment rise to the top with the veteran
mhm.
drivers up there
Mhm.
and the guys that have that background of being able to conserve their equipment, save their equipment, and keep it together. I mean,
Mhm.
you can't look at Ty Gibbs. He had great run, great speed all day, but he couldn't conserve his equipment there at the end for the long green flag run and
Mhm.
ended up falling back.
Yeah, he couldn't help himself from going to the front each time. And
Mm-hmm.
then that last run to where they didn't get a yellow, it nipped him in the bud. But
Mhm.
I think the way the tires, I think because it was so unexpected, that first 150, 200 laps, you're like, this isn't good. But then once everybody kind of like the shock of everything went away and everybody kind of like got settled in, it's like, all right, here's what we need to do. Because I think Denny, Martin, and Keselowski went like 60 something laps on their last set before on their final stop. Those tires had like
Mhm.
65 something laps on them.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's a big change from the 35, 40 that they were getting during the first stage to just that change from there. So I think a lot of people on different podcasts were saying if they went back today with the exact same tire, exact same track conditions, and they had a little bit of time to tweak their car, they could get 85 laps out of those tires. So I think the tire's good. Don't change the tire. Bring back the same tire and let everybody adjust accordingly. I think it was just because when you look back at the fall race, those tires did not wear like that at all. And that's
No.
the exact same tire. Um, the only thing, because I know NASCAR gave every team a set of tires. The only thing I don't know is for the teams that ran that tire, what did those look like after? Because those were year-old tires. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious as to what those looked like after that, after teams ran. Because I don't think everybody ran them, just some people ran them. Because I think almost everybody had a set lane at the end,
Yeah.
and some people ran NASCAR, some people didn't.
So,
But it
well,
put the race back in the driver's hands, and like you said, Alan, the cream rose to the top of who has the skill to manage their equipment and stuff. And you know what I haven't heard about this week that people have been hammering on over and over and over and over again?
Hmm.
No horsepower chatter this week at all. No, put more horsepower in the car. Everybody's like, that's exactly what we needed. And guess what? that didn't involve horsepower, which seemed with every person you talk to in the industry outside of NASCAR, that seems to be their only solution is horsepower, 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 horsepower. And then it's like, boom.
Tire wear.
Tire wear. You just need extreme tire wear.
I mean, you don't even need extreme at that point. You just need enough
Yeah.
to make the driver drive and have to make a decision on, okay, do I think that I can run these to make a run and then conserve at the end of the run? Or should I conserve at the beginning of the run to make up ground at the end of the run? And how should I, or what do I do to conserve these tires? And I mean, horsepower would do the same thing, but I think it's a lot easier for Goodyear to make a decision to be able to just say, hey, we'll just soften it up a little bit and call it a day.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, even if you look at, because the way NASCAR has the cars now and how much of a box each team is in, when you have the tires that don't wear, like the first couple years or the first, I guess, 2 years of the are we in year 2 or 3 of next gen?
Year 3.
Year 3. I think the first year they brought that tire to Bristol. I mean, you had tire failures because people were running the air pressures too low, but I think it was that track. The tires weren't wearing until 80 laps in.
Yeah.
And then tires started to fall off. In the box that you have everybody in, everybody's just, the cars are so close, then everybody is just parading around because everybody's car drives the same because there's no tire fall off and you're running qualifying laps every lap and it's so hard to pass people. But when you do get that tire wear factor to where you're having to manage your stuff at your rate and the other guy's managing the stuff at his rate, that's when your driver skill starts to show. And then you look at your top 3 drivers were the 3 oldest drivers in the series because they're the only ones that really have true experience doing that in the cup cars versus Kyle Busch does, but I don't know what was going on with his car, but excluding
another week of pit road misery.
Yeah, every single week.
Well, I hear he keeps changing out his crew members.
Yeah, they've been making changes, I think, almost every week since Las Vegas.
At least like 2 or 3 a week are new.
Yeah, if they don't stop doing that, they're never going to get any continuity, and it's going to continue to be problems.
Yeah, this year it was.
He made the comment because he's had some self-inflicted wounds, and he's like, "Well, tenths of a second matter so much right now, and when your pit crew's not going to get you those tenths of a second, I'm doing everything I can to make up for those tenths of a second, and that's where all my pit road speeding penalties are coming for sliding through the box too far, just because I'm trying to give the extra 10% just to get those couple tenths,
right,
and costing us more because I know my pit crew's slacking, so I'm trying to have to make up for it. On driver, which is odd to me because the past 2 years RCR's had some of the best pit crews, and now it just seems to be, I mean, their whole program over there seems to just be crumbling right now on the cup side.
Yeah, it's abysmal. So I think this week the issue was they did not get the right or left front tightened all the way. They dropped the jack. It wasn't tightened. The pit crew member was like, hey, hey, hey. So then he was pulling out of the box, had to back up in the box. So then you're talking the gear change. You're talking another 5 seconds or so to fix that stop. And 5 seconds at Bristol is almost half a lap.
Right.
So very unfortunate. Again, if you can't execute on pit road, you can't execute. It's a team sport. It may seem like a driver sport, but it's a team sport. You look back, and I talked about this last year. Look back at the 2021 champion, Kyle Larson. He won because of the money stop at Phoenix, because of that stop that the team put in, and that's just the way it is. Your team's got to be busting on all cylinders. You're talking the golden standard right now is what, like 8.6 seconds, 8.8 seconds pit stop is the best one that's done by the 20 car.
Well,
the 20 team.
The 20 and the 11 tied this week. They both had an 8.6 stop.
Yeah, so I mean that's your gold standard, and you're looking at Bush probably having a 9 to a 9.1 on average, and with
Yeah.
something like that happening or having a penalty or something every time, every week, you're tacking on either a pass through, you're tacking on another 5 seconds, so you're looking at a 14.5, and I mean a
Mhm.
14.5 is almost a lap at Bristol.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if
Mhm.
you just look at under caution pit stops, just that 0.5 seconds with how tight the window is, when the fastest pit stops are 8.6 seconds, that
Hmm.
0.5 seconds makes a huge difference. That's
Oh
5 or
yeah.
6 spots
Hmm.
every time you're losing.
So yeah, I mean oh man, I mean just it's thing after thing, and they got to figure it out, but to figure it out, you got to also have a steady core in the middle. And I mean, they've changed out Jackman, they've changed out tire changers, and you got to have a process in place. The reason the 11 and the 20 team are so good is because they do so many reps together. So your carrier knows what's going on with your changer with the gun. Your carrier knows by just probably body motion that hey, he's getting that off. I need to go ahead and be getting the new wheel on, and the reps, the practice time, and I don't know what RCR's training facility is like. I'm assuming that they'd have something along the same lines and standard as what Joe Gibbs or RFK or Hendrick has along with how they train.
Yeah, well, you'd think they'd have the best guys too, because they really started that movement of locking pit crew guys down with big contracts for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was last year or the year before they started throwing some contracts out there to be like, hey, we're willing to pay for the best guys if you're willing to come. And to see the struggles that they're having on pit road just doesn't make any sense. But like we talked about, if you change guys around each week, there's never going to be any continuity with that group, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be harder and harder to make things jive if you don't have any continuity. Even if they're making mistakes, let them ride for 2 or 3 weeks. Don't just change somebody every single week.
Yeah, especially like
Mhm.
I mean, when you're coming to a place where there's high pressure, high stress, like let them perform. They're athletes. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at a pit crew or you listen to they're now interviewing them during the Fox
Mm-hmm.
broadcast, or they're doing introductions almost like a football game, like a NFL game where this like offensive line, Georgia, so on and so forth. They're doing the same thing, and then they're talking about where they're from. A lot of these guys are collegiate athletes that are alumni from top tier schools that played at the highest level in college, or they may have even played into professional sports. But these guys know how to perform under pressure. They can perform under pressure, and it's almost like I think back to we've been watching The Ranch, and as soon as they get one cow out of eight, uh, Bo immediately takes back the job and does it himself, and it's like, well, you can't learn, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not going to let them learn, if you're not going to let them,
Consistency.
yeah, consistency is key.
Mhm.
So, well,
Speaking of consistency, um, the Blaney and Chastain saga continues, and I think
yes,
Alan, you have a video of this, don't you?
I do. So you will see Blaney on the bottom. This is from Bush's car. And I mean, if you don't know, so I
You
think
got Chastain.
that is exactly what Mike Joy said on the broadcast. Is he was
I know they,
Chastained.
they need a they need a button. You've been Chastain.
So yeah, I mean, we go back to Phoenix last year with even though Blaney's racing for a championship, Chastain didn't give him an inch. And Chastain after that took the race. I think there's been a couple incidents in the first couple weeks as well leading up to this, and then again. And to add to this, when Ryan Blaney was asked about him post race by media, he said, "I'm tired of answering questions about Ross," and walked away from the media during his post race interview. And that was the end of that media time for Blaney at
I
Bristol.
know. Kenny Hamlin right now is like, whew, better him than me.
Yeah. So, but with that, do you see the former champion at some point putting some retaliation on him or racing him harder than he's being raced right now by Chastain?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's what
So,
Chastain's gonna Chastain until you start pushing back. If he pushes you around and you don't push back, he's gonna keep pushing you around. He's a bully on the racetrack, you know.
Mhm.
And he doesn't care about being your friend, so he doesn't care if he hurts your feelings. He's made that very clear.
yeah, very remnant
And
of the Intimidator in that regard. So, move or get moved.
Took the
So,
words right out of my mouth.
so yeah, I think we'll see something here in the next couple weeks. Maybe Darlington will be another good race for Chastain.
yeah.
How long do you think this little saga is gonna continue?
Probably until someone gets like seriously wrecked. You know,
And
like
they're just gonna be like, all right, even.
Till NASCAR steps in.
yeah, like when cars start getting like tore up, and then it'll be one thing. Because right now it's just a lot of like aero blocking games and moving people out of the way. But when people start getting
Physically moving them.
yeah, when you start getting spun out and cautions and stuff, and you start manipulating the way the races are going because of that, then NASCAR will probably put their foot in. But that's when the action is at the height of it, and you don't need to stop it. You know. But,
Yeah.
Just keep letting
Well,
it go. Let it
so
go.
I have a question. What do you think led to the true Chastain returning this season? Because this is something we didn't see until Phoenix last year. Like Phoenix Championship last year.
probably his lack of success from Darlington to Phoenix, and trying to do it other people's way.
So after the conversation with Rick Hendrick
Yeah,
and Justin
like look,
Marks and
Rick,
all those
if your
comments.
cars are in my way and I got a winning car, hate it for them. I don't care that they got a Chevrolet. I'm trying to win the race.
Yeah.
And good for him. He shouldn't, just because Rick Hendrick is Rick Hendrick doesn't mean you should. I mean, obviously you should show him some respect because he's a big part of this. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you don't drive for him. You drive for Justin Marks. You know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
So it doesn't matter if y'all are driving Chevrolets. That only matters at plate tracks.
yeah.
But
I agree.
Alan,
So
if you were Goodyear, would you bring the same tire to Bristol in the fall?
yeah.
Or would you try and
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
make it wear just a little bit less?
Again, I think going back to what we talked about earlier, I think that the it has a lot more to do with conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
track condition and things along those lines. So I would say that I would not make any drastic changes, or if I even
Yeah.
make any changes, for that matter, because again, September, it could be hot, it could be colder. You may
Mm-hmm.
have PJ1, you may have resin. Hell, it may rain.
Yeah.
So we know NASCAR is known for that. So I'm going
Reference
to shoot
the
that same.
whole first half of the season.
Yeah, I'm going to shoot that same question down below to Emily. Do you think Goodyear should bring the same tire?
Yeah, no, I think they should. Like y'all said earlier, with the tires that they have now, they're putting it back in the driver's hands. They're actually having to drive. And there's a lot more strategy within pit stops and how to stretch your, why is the word leaving my brain? Equipment. There you go. Thank you. Stretch your equipment. There's a lot more strategy going into it, and that makes a lot better of a race than if we didn't go under caution for 100 laps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way the fall race ran with the warmth and the way the track actually took rubber, those tires lasted a little bit longer. So I imagine with the way that spring race went, teams will be less aggressive on their setup. So I'd probably, if I was NASCAR, I would put resin on the track. I wouldn't put PJ1 back down just to see if that's the factor or if the track temperature was the factor, you know. But I would bring the exact same tire. If anything, the way it raced in the fall last year, I might even bring a softer tire that wears a little bit more. Because if the track, if it's warm,
It's an interesting note
Hmm.
there.
if it's warm and takes rubber like it did in the fall last year, those tires could go 80, 100 laps. And that's almost too long, you know?
Okay.
Right.
Especially if Goodyear says, hey, we're bringing back the same tire, teams take a less aggressive approach on their camber and stuff than they did this week. So they're already going to get another 20, 25 laps. And then if it rubbers up, the next thing you know, they're going a whole fuel run on those tires.
Yeah, and the fuel run's what, 95 to 105? Or is it
fuel run
125?
50 laps,
How many laps?
150.
Oh. Yeah, we don't want
Oh.
that. Sorry, I
No.
thought it was lower. I thought it was like maybe 125 max. So
Yeah.
whoa. So
that's my thing. I'd almost, if anything, bring a little bit. Might even go a little bit more aggressive for the fall race, just statistically how the weather has been down there with the warmer temps in September.
Yeah.
With the expectation of it rubbering up. But this year, the smarter thing would probably just be bring the same tire, throw the resin down instead of the PJ1, and eliminate that variable, and just see if it's strictly the track temperature. Because that's the only two variables is the resin versus PJ1 and track temperature. Everything else is the same.
Yeah. Well, overall, do y'all think Bristol was a good race?
Oh, yeah.
100%. Hell yeah. So, and I have the viewers number again, my weekly segment on this. So, Bristol numbers are in again. This was posted by Serious Fast Motorsports on their Facebook page. A 3.8 million average viewers, up 11% over Atlanta last year, which was the same weekend, from 3.4. 10% from last year's spring Bristol race, which was 3.4, and that was on dirt. It peaked at 4.1 million viewers towards the end of the race at the 7 to 7:15 mark. And overall, 2024 remains positive 11% from 2023 through week 5, excluding the Daytona 500. That was race postponed. And the Jeff Gluck poll, I think, was 87%.
Yeah, 87 or 88. And those 13 to 12% people, I hate to say this, they're idiots.
They're wrong.
That was a good race. Yeah. Respectfully, you're wrong.
Did you happen to get the peak viewership?
Yes. So the peak was 4.196 million.
When?
At 7 to 7:15. So right there towards the end of the race, which unfortunately for them, they missed the best parts, because at that point you had 5 cars on the lead lap. So, and the last time they had something like that was 04 Dover, when they had 5 or less on the lead lap at the end of the race. But you're looking at, I mean, we were sitting there talking about it. I think when Bowman, when he took the lead with everybody a lap down, he had like 55 to 57 laps since his last pit stop. And he had a lap on him, minimum. But this is the deciding factor on should NASCAR have thrown the caution. So if we'll pull up Hocevar's video, because I'm pretty sure this was right there at that same moment, an instant. And if you watch, you'll see the hood flap lift right at the beginning of the video on the right side. And watch how slow he gets. In the ballpark of 35 to 45 miles an hour. And while Bristol's not a fast track, they're running about 120 going into the corner. So in this
So-
instance,
Do you say caution or no caution?
I say for the sake of the race, no caution. But for the
Yeah, I don't-
safety factor, I mean, if you want to
That's
be
where I
consistent,
was torn. That's where I was torn. For the sake of the race, no caution. But for the safety factor, put out a caution. Like,
yeah. So here's
But-
something we got to remember. So you lost Kurt Busch to a concussion from a rear-end collision. Granted, they've softened up the body, they've softened the frame. I'll give them that. But you lost Alex Bowman for a couple weeks to a concussion in Texas. This is 2022, so we're a year and a half-ish removed from this. These situations, but you still have to be weary. These cars are way more rigid. So, and we'll look back at Preece and Larson last year, Talladega, where the door bar got pushed over towards the driver's seat during a wreck, and it was a 59-mile-an-hour difference. So 35 to 120 is a 95-mile-an-hour difference, or 85-mile-an-hour difference. So you're looking at very, very dangerous speeds when it comes to an accident. And granted, there is a lot of safety equipment on these cars. There's a lot of safety equipment that goes into the build of these cars. Granted, like you said last week, we can sit here and talk about what ifs forever. And it turned out good, but unfortunately,
it could have gone
it
really bad.
would have affected the race negatively to throw a caution there. But for the safety aspect, I think that's a very big risk factor, especially because he blew it at the entrance to his pit road. And he could not get down to pit road.
What's the difference in that and when people's tires were corded and they were up out of the groove riding around at 60 miles an hour? Just hoping somebody else spun out while people were flying past them.
See, that's a situation where if they're riding around like that, probably should look at throwing a flag on them. So I think,
but I guess it depends on what NASCAR's minimum safety speed on that track is, which is probably what pit road speed is, which is 35 miles an hour.
yeah, I mean that is a good point.
That is a good point.
So,
But I mean, if you look when he blows the tire, he gets up out of the way, and he commented about it on Twitter. He didn't realize what side of the racetrack he was. So look, he blows the tire, he stays high, out of the way, lets everybody get past him. And he thought that was his pit road entrance. So that's why he dove down. He thought he was going to pit right here. And then they're like, that's not your pit road. So now he has to stay low and in the middle, just let people pass him on either side that they're going to split him. And then he gets to pit on this side. I mean, even though he's going at the speed he's going, nothing that he did was unsafe besides not realize which side of the track he's on, which at Bristol, pretty easy to do. You know, I don't think any warrant, even with his speed, none of that warranted a caution. I mean, if he would have ended up backwards, maybe.
It'd be different.
yeah, which I mean, he almost did, but again, it's a world of, like I said last week, what ifs. But
Yeah,
I
almost
still,
counts as
because if you're looking at that situation, you're looking at Bowman's got a pit. He obviously can't stay out on those tires. But if he pits and nobody else does, he probably comes back through the field another time. So, because everybody would need to pit or not pit so that they can get a pass. But then he's probably going to come back through the field because you're looking at 10 to 15 laps, maybe 20 laps on the on your race winners and your top 10 guys at that point. So it's a slippery slope, and I think we see these almost weekly. And I mean, the caution's not a surefire. This is what we're going to do. You blow a tire, we're throwing a caution. No, it's all a matter of opinion at that point. And opinions, everybody has one. So, and NASCAR's opinion was that didn't warrant a caution. And the breakdown of that you did, I think, was very well done. The fact that he did get up out of the groove or up to the wall in the turn. And then, I mean, it was at that point kind of on him for not realizing where he was and not having a spotter let him know either because he had plenty of time
Yeah.
on the straightaway.
Well, and it's not like he didn't know his tires were corded. He was probably riding around on cords for 5 or 10 laps and knowing that was happening, but he was waiting on somebody else to spin to make a caution. And it just so happened people started pitting, and NASCAR's made it pretty clear this year that unless they absolutely have to, they're not going to call a caution during a pit cycle and screw everything up.
Yeah,
Because
look at Atlanta.
if they do call that caution with Alex Bowman a lap ahead of everybody, so then he pits, has fresh tires, everybody else has to take a wave around on old tires, and Alex Bowman can just cruise to the victory.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's still going to have a lap on everybody because it's not even going to be, it wouldn't even have been a close at that point unless somebody just instantly spun to cause another caution to where everybody could run back down pit road and get on even tires.
Yeah.
So that would have spoiled the race right there. And that race was shaping up to be phenomenal at the end. So
yeah,
I think it was a good call for no caution. I don't think what happened really warranted a caution. I guess, like you said, it's just really a matter of opinion.
So, time to move on to something that y'all have been talking about for weeks. And I have to go back and listen to all of our episodes about everything I'm supposed to ask y'all next week. It is time for COTA.
That Alan asked last week, and I said no, and I was wrong. I think Toyota's going to kick everybody's butts on all the short tracks.
What you would do, sir? Cream of the crop. Class of the field. All Yoda.
Yeah, they led almost every lap. And I mean, at one point, it looked like they're going to finish 1, 2, 3, 4. I was like, geez Louise, they're stinking up the show up there.
Yeah. Oh, quick shout out. Hendrick led their 800,000th lap as an organization this weekend. Or 80,000th. 80,000th. Most in the Cup Series. I said 800,000.
I was going to say 800,000 is impressive.
Yeah, 80,000th. My apologies. 8 with 5 zeros, not 6.
So it is finally time for COTA.
That would be 4 zeros, actually. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. This is starting to shape up like the Splash and Go episode last night.
Oh. Yeah, how many laps did Billy Bob Joe lead in 2019 for somebody else's racing team? 42? I don't know.
I want to know how many tiebreaker questions we did before we finally got one.
Yeah, guys, keep your eyes peeled. This is a plug for our Splash and Go episode coming out in a couple weeks, where we do a head-to-head between Daniel and I, with Emily being the host of a questionnaire about NASCAR history. And man, do we need to read some books?
Yeah, or have been born 40 years before we were.
Hey,
Yeah,
it
with
came
some of those.
straight off of the Hall of Fame website. That's all I'm saying.
Sounds like we need a all-expense-paid trip to the Hall of Fame first.
This is not Phoenix.
It can be. It can be. All right, I'm done.
So, COTA. Expectations for COTA we have, let's see. AJ in the 13, SVG in the 16, Timmy Hill in 66 for Power Source, and yes?
Kobayashi. Is it Kobayashi?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Kamichi Kobayashi.
I've heard it said, and I cannot say it. I'm not even going to try to butcher that name.
Kobayashi.
In the 50 for 2311.
Kobayashi. I apologize. I think he's an F1 champion, correct? So he raced last year for 2311 in the 67. So they are actually
That,
do what?
that rhymes.
2311 in the 67. Yes, it does. But this year
A rap.
they are actually running a Mobile One scheme in the 50 car, which is courtesy of the Money Team Racing, letting them use the 50 as the number. But the interesting hint that they did drop, while we'll jump on this, is just to drop something on that. They are running 3 races with 3 different drivers in this scheme. So we got 2 more drivers for 2311 to announce for the 50 car this year. So that's something to keep an eye out on. But road course ringers, Daniel, what are you thinking about these entries right here?
I'm just really surprised, Trackhouse. They signed SVG, and they're like, "Here you go, colleague. You put them in whatever you want to put them in." I'm surprised they're not throwing them in the Project 91 car. Like, this is our project, but you foot the bill for it. You put them in the 16 car, and if you want to run AJ Allmendinger, you're going to have to bring an open car. That's just kind of crazy to me that Trackhouse isn't like, hey, SVG, you want to race the Cup Series this week? Here, why don't you come over into our 91 car? Because obviously AJ Allmendinger is going to want to come run every Cup race for Colleague that he can, because he showed it last year that he can win. And
Right.
That's what that organization needs, is to stack some wins, whether it be in Cup or Xfinity.
Well, my question on that is, do you think that it was a colleague decision to put SVG in the 16, which is a chartered car, in contention for owner's points?
I mean, SVG has the funding to come up to the Cup ride, whereas obviously AJ doesn't, hence the fact that he's back in Xfinity, So SVG has the money to be able to come up into a fully funded ride. And I'm sure they have complete faith that AJ Allmendinger is going to be able to race his way in with an open car. So,
well, that's only 40 cars total with those 4. So I don't think I haven't heard of an 84 announcement or anything along those lines or any other open cars. So that would be 40.
He's doing 1.5 miles this year. So, I mean, that's the only interesting thing to me, is that there is no Project 91, even if they're going to bring. I'm sure after this race last year, Kimi Räikkönen probably doesn't want to do any more Project 91 races after the crapshoot that we had last year at COTA.
Yeah, I'm surprised we don't see Brody Kostecki.
Yeah, in the 33.
In the 33, or even in the Project 91 car.
Because, Brett Griffin said he's doing 8 races for RCR this year. So I was thinking, oh, they're probably going to have that guy doing all the road courses. And then Austin Hill and on some plate track somewhere,
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows? The stage cautions are back at the road courses this year. So that kind of throws well, I mean, I'm indifferent towards it because I kind of like seeing a road course play through, but I think this brings more strategy on what's more important to you, stage points or the race win.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the day, you're going to put yourself in that box, and it's which box do you want to be in? A good points day or lock myself in the playoffs? So I think there's 6 drivers right now who probably are just going to go say, well, we're already locked into the playoffs, so we're for sure pitting with 2 laps to go every time to make sure that we're contending for a race win. And then there's 32 other drivers that are like, I could really use some points, So interesting box that everybody's going to be in this week. So that's really what is making the road courses good. It's just that's a long track, so those are going to be some long cautions, and there's going to be a lot of commercials every time there's a caution. And you already know that's going to lead to people complaining because there's, oh my God, we've been on a commercial for 5 minutes, and it's like, well, it takes 10 minutes to run one lap around that track under caution. Like, you just want to watch cars running 50 miles an hour for 10 minutes? No,
Yeah,
nobody cares about it. So
yeah. Looking at I mean, if you watch the full race replays of those when they're in the caution staging time, where it's because there's no commercial on the NASCAR YouTube page, it's just like driving Miss Daisy. Yeah, Jeopardy
so
theme music starts.
and then they you said they changed the restart zone because of last year. That was the biggest reason for the crapshoot. So where's the
Yes.
new restart COTA, and what are the rules that go with that?
So it's the same restart zone rules as we've had in the past. The only difference is it's coming out of turn 21 onto the front stretch. So it's right after you come out of turn 21, probably about 60 yards, 100 yards up. That's where the restart zone starts. So instead of everybody being able to build speed on the straightaway together as a group, you're going to have guys in the middle to back of the field still coming through turn 21 right there, which is basically that like 70-degree turn or um,
Almost 90.
130-degree turn because I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
sharper of an angle right there. So they're going to be coming out of that turn and then having to build speed. So it's going to spread the field on the front stretch.
So what about? I know we talked about this last year during our podcast. What's the rule going to be for coming across the finish line? You still got to, with it being that far back from the start finish, do you have to wait to cross the finish line before you start fanning out, or as soon as you get out of the restart zone can you fan out, or did they even specify that?
That's not even specified. I'm assuming that it's going to be the same rules as across the board. You will have to be at XYZ point, or you have to be. There's either gonna. I would assume there's going to be a marker on the track, or it's going to be the start finish. If they do the start finish, we're probably going to have wrecks on restarts of guys that spin tires and getting bottlenecked. If they'll let them fan at like where the old restart zone started. So I wasn't able to get a picture, but I will try to show this one to you guys. This is probably the most janky way to do it, but we're going to do it this way. So if you see there, the green is the old restart zone, and the yellow is where the new one is.
Well,
So
yeah,
it
that's
is.
way further back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my thing. Is they got to do something about when your lane change. So that's going to be the biggest question mark for me, which was our biggest question mark last year. If they do change the restart zones, what are the rules going to be for that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd assume they make a change just for the aspect of think about how many times we've had guys on older tires at the front of the field spin, and then they're getting just bottleneck in the field. We look at some restarts last year from later in the season at intermediates where you had half the field spin on a restart because of a bottleneck. You lost good contenders because of that bottleneck in that race. So I would assume that there's going to be an earlier line to be able to fan, but I just don't know where that line's going to be. Because the other thing is, it's going to be interesting for those guys in the back of the field that are starting to build speed on. Well, you're coming out of turn 21, but the inside row's moving in front of you, but the guy beside you's not. Can you cut inside on the inside right there and come down to the turtles and then go? So can you get the preferred racing line on the restart?
Yep.
So it's something that
Yeah,
we'll have to watch from the weekend.
Yep, that's what I just feel bad for everybody that starts in front of Joey Logano and Ross Chastain.
Yeah.
Because they tend to go dive bomb city on road course restarts.
So, and now you have a different style turn to dive bomb.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
right. Well,
is it pick time?
It's pick time. Let's talk about our Bristol picks.
No, I don't want to talk about my Bristol pick.
Yeah, you were the first caution.
Yeah. First blown tire, 6 laps down, hit the wall, everything.
Yeah, not
I had so much confidence.
He was a solid pick too. So you didn't finish dead last though.
Yeah.
You finished 35th, mainly because Zane Smith can't avoid an accident. So I don't know if
I
y'all
hope
remember
for
that
him.
with Zane Smith having an absolutely abysmal season.
Yeah, he might be I think he's the only person who's having a worse season than
And Bush.
Dillon and Kyle Busch.
Oh,
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. Um,
I will say, like, I saw promise in him in the duels.
Yeah, those don't mean a lot.
The duels, I know they don't mean much, but what I am saying is I saw promise in him, and I was like, okay, he's gonna have a pretty good season, and then it just like dive bombed.
his average finish this year so far is 29.8.
All right.
Poor
And
dude.
then,
So,
Alan, who do you have?
Who did you?
Who did I pick? Michael McDowell. So
Oh
he was
yeah.
unfortunately one of
11.
the lap down cars, but I should have stuck with my gut and went with a Toyota last week. But hey, I am happy with an 11th place Michael McDowell at Bristol. It tells me that I was thinking right for the most part.
Yep. And then I picked Brad Keselowski, and he came home third. I was hoping that Truex and Hamlin were racing each other hard enough through the traffic. I was like, oh, this is about to be perfect. The wind's about to fall in Keselowski's hands because they're both about to just start dropping like flies, and he's back there saving his tires just in case that happens. And it didn't. It
Just
didn't. I
waiting
was
on
like,
it.
oh, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
He almost had an Emily Las Vegas moment where I
Yep.
was like, I don't know how I did that.
I
Yep.
did it.
But brings us to COTA this week, and
And Daniel, you get to pick first.
I get to pick first, and I'm gonna pick the driver that gave me my first pick win combo last year at this racetrack, Tyler Reddick. He's gonna do it for me 2 years in a row.
Solid pick there, Daniel.
I was gonna say I was considering Reddick too.
Well, I am going to go with my gut and what I stated a couple weeks ago about this driver after Phoenix. And I'm going to say this is where Ty Gibbs picks up his first win.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Very. And
And
last one,
I'm gonna go with the 2022 COTA winner, Chase Elliott.
comeback weekend for Elliott.
I have faith. Let me have faith. I'm still in the lead between all of us.
Barely.
That is true.
After this week, I'm gonna start worrying.
Yeah, you got to point up. So, well, guys, without further ado, I reckon we've come to the end of the show. So make sure to follow us on all of our social medias at Gases on the Right podcast. And make sure to share us on Facebook, share our YouTube everywhere. Connect with us through comment sections, and we will talk to you all next week.